Okay, if you've ever spent any time in a garden, I can almost guarantee you've seen this plant. It's this small, kind of delicate-looking thing that just pops up everywhere. And, most of us just pull it out without giving it a second thought, but this common little weed is hiding a pretty fascinating secret.
And that really brings us to the big question here, doesn't it? Is this plant just a stubborn nuisance that's trying to take over your flower beds, or is it something much more valuable? Turns out, the answer is both.
So, let's start with the side of the story we're probably all familiar with. For gardeners, this plant isn't just a plant, it's a formidable and, let's be honest, a really frustrating opponent.
It goes by a whole bunch of names, and none of them are exactly flattering, right? Chamber bitter, gripeweed, leaf flower. I mean, you can tell from the names alone that this is something people spend a lot of time trying to get rid of.
And here is exactly why it's such a pain. First off, it can go from seed to making its own seeds in as little as 4 weeks. It couldn't care less if it's in blazing sun or total shade. Then, when you try to pull it, you know how the brittle stem just snaps, leaving the root in the ground to just grow right back? Ugh. But the real kicker, the thing that makes it a super spreader, those tiny little seed pods under the leaves, they literally explode and fling seeds everywhere.
And just think about the numbers here. A single one of these little plants can produce over 1,000 seeds. That's how one tiny weed you missed suddenly becomes an entire patch that's completely taken over a garden bed.
But that's only one side of the coin. Because while gardeners are out there fighting this thing, for centuries, a whole other group of people has been actively looking for it, which reveals its secret life as a powerful medicine.
Yeah, in the world of traditional medicine, this plant isn't called gripeweed. It's known by these incredibly powerful names like shatterstone or choncapiedra, which, by the way, literally translates from Spanish to stonebreaker. And that name gives you a massive clue about what it's most famous for.
And this is where it gets really cool, where ancient tradition starts to meet modern science. So traditionally, it was the go-to for kidney stones. Well, today, lab studies are actually showing that it might inhibit the formation of the very crystals that make those stones. It was used for liver support, and now research is showing it has promise against hepatitis B. It's even been shown to lower blood glucose in animal models. You can see how science is starting to build a bridge to these ancient practices.
So clearly, this little plant has some serious potential, but this is where the story gets a little complicated. There's a classic case of mistaken identity that causes a ton of confusion, even for scientists.
You see, our plant, Phyllanthus urinaria, which is originally from Asia, has a very, very close cousin from the Americas called Phyllanthus nereri. They look almost identical. They both get called choncapiedra, and they're both used as medicine. And this means they get mixed up all the time, in herbal products and even in some of the research. So how can you actually tell the difference? If one is growing in your backyard, how can you be sure which one you're really looking at? Well, luckily, if you know what to look for, there are a few dead giveaways.
Okay, let's break this down. The absolute #1 clue is the fruit. On our plant, Phyllanthus urinaria, the little round fruits are tucked right up against the stem. There's no visible stalk. But on its cousin, nereri, the fruits hang down on these tiny, very distinct little stalks. The second big clue is the color under the leaf. Urinaria is just a pale green, while nereri has this really noticeable silvery bluish tint to it.
So to make it super simple, here's your checklist. First, check the fruit. Are they stalkless, pressed right against the stem? That's a big check for our plant urinaria. Second, flip over a leaf. Is it pale green on the bottom? Another check for urinaria. And finally, just think about where you are. While both are pretty widespread now, urinaria is by far the more common weed you'll find across the US and Asia.
So, all of this brings us right back to where we started, but now, hopefully, with a much richer perspective. This one little plant is truly living a double life.
There's a quote that just sums it up perfectly. A weed is often a matter of perspective. The exact same plant that's a total nuisance in a manicured lawn is a treasured stonebreaker herb in another context. It all just depends on your point of view.
Which really just leaves us with one last thought. The next time you see this little plant popping up, maybe between some pavers or in a flower pot, you might just look at it a little differently. Is it just a weed you need to pull, or is it a little bit of wonder hiding in plain sight?